Widowed rancher married a woman cast out by her family, and together they built a legacy. The Woman in the Rain. The scream pierced through the drumming rain like a knife through canvas. Elias Turner bolted upright from his kitchen table, coffee mug clattering against worn wood. Through the water-streaked window of his ranch house, he could barely make out a figure collapsed near his fence line. A woman, her blue dress plastered to her frame, one hand clutching the wooden post while the other pressed against her ribs. "Lord have mercy," Elias muttered, grabbing his oil slicker from the hook by the door. The September storm had turned the Kansas plains into a muddy battlefield, and as he slogged through the mire, thunder rolled across the endless sky like God's own wagon wheels. The woman's eyes green as spring wheat locked onto his as he approached. Blood seeped between her fingers where she held her side, mixing with the rain to create pink rivulets down her dress. But it was the defiance in her gaze that stopped him cold. Even hurt, even desperate, she looked ready to fight. "Easy now," Elias said, raising his hands. "Name's Elias Turner. This is my land. Let me help you." "I don't need charity," she gasped, though her knees buckled even as she spoke. Didn't offer charity, offered help. He moved closer, noting the quality of her dress beneath the mud and blood-fine fabric. Pearl buttons. This was no farm girl. "What's your name?" She hesitated, jaw clenched against pain or pride or both. "Abigail." "Well, Abigail, you can die out here in my pasture and scare my cattle, or you can let me get you inside where it's warm. Your choice." A bitter laugh escaped her lips. Some choice. But when he offered his arm, she took it. The walk to the house revealed more questions than answers. Her hands were soft, no calluses from work, but her boots were worn down to nothing, suggesting she'd been walking for days. Inside, by the light of kerosene lamps, Elias could see the purple bruise blooming across her left cheekbone, the scratches on her arms that looked deliberately inflicted rather than accidental. "Sit," he commanded, guiding her to the kitchen chair. "I need to look at that wound." "It's not deep," Abigail said, but she winced as he gently pulled her hand away. Someone had taken a blade to her, a shallow but cruel cut along her ribs, meant to hurt and humiliate rather than kill. As Elias cleaned the wound with whiskey from his cabinet, he studied her face. 25, maybe younger, beautiful in that refined way that spoke of parasols and piano lessons. Not prairie life, but there was steel in her spine, visible in how she bit her lip rather than cry out when the alcohol hit the cut. "Who did this to you?" he asked quietly. Her green eyes flashed. "Does it matter?" "Might, if they come looking." "They won't." The certainty in her voice was absolute. "To them, I'm already dead." Elias wrapped clean cloth around her ribs, his hands gentle despite their size. His late wife Margaret's clothes still hung in the bedroom closet. It had been 2 years since consumption took her, but he hadn't had the heart to pack them away. Now, he retrieved a simple brown dress and wool shawl. "These were my wife's," he said, setting them on the table. "You can change in the bedroom. I'll heat some stew." Abigail's fingers traced the fabric. "Your wife, she's gone. 2 years now. I'm sorry." "So am I." He turned to the stove, giving her privacy to process whatever she was running from. "But sorry doesn't change what is. Only what we do next matters." When she emerged, Margaret's dress hanging loose on her smaller frame, Abigail looked younger, more vulnerable, but she held her chin high as she sat at his table, accepting the bowl of stew with a quiet thank you. They ate in silence while the storm raged outside. Finally, Abigail spoke. "My father is Theodore Morrison. Perhaps you've heard of him. He owns the largest bank in Kansas City." Elias had heard the name. Morrison held mortgages on half the farms in the state. "Rich man." "A powerful man," she corrected. "One who decided his daughter would marry Harold Fitzgerald to merge to banking empires. When I refused, she touched her bruised cheek. Father doesn't tolerate disobedience. Said I'd marry Harold or be dead to the family. I chose death, and the cut." Her jaw tightened. "My brother William, his parting gift, along with throwing me from the house with nothing but what I wore." She met Elias's eyes. "I've been walking for 6 days, sleeping in barns, begging for scraps. You're the first person who's offered help without wanting something in return." "How do you know I don't want something?" Because you haven't asked for it yet. She leaned back, exhaustion evident in every line of her body. So what happens now, Mr. Turner? You've fed me, tended my wounds. Come morning, I'll move on. Find work somewhere. Maybe as a seamstress or you know how to sew. Yes, it was expected of a lady. Can you cook? Her eyes narrowed. Some. Why? Elias pushed his empty bowl aside. I've got 300 head of cattle, 24 horses, and more work than one man can handle. My ranch hands quit last month when I couldn't pay full wages. Drought hit hard this summer. Been trying to do it all myself. But he gestured at the simple kitchen. The dust on the shelves, the general air of a house missing a woman's touch. Room and board, plus $2 a week for cooking, mending, keeping house. Works hard. Hours are long, and town folk will gossip. But it's honest work. Abigail stared at him. You don't know me, know enough. You're running from something. But you're not running to anything. I've got space and need help. Seems simple enough. People will think. They'll assume. Let them assume. I stopped caring what people think when I put my wife in the ground. His voice softened. Look, Miss Morrison, not Morrison. She interrupted. Not anymore. Just Abigail. All right, Abigail. Offer stands. You can have the small room off the kitchen has its own door. Lock on the inside. You decide in the morning. But he could see the decision already forming in her eyes. The careful calculation of a woman who'd learned the hard way that pride was a luxury she couldn't afford. Outside, lightning illuminated the vast prairie, and thunder shook the windows. Something was about to change in both their lives, though neither could guess how much. Learning the land, you're holding it wrong. Abigail glared at Elias over the axe handle, sweat dripping down her face despite the October chill. 3 weeks into her new life, and her soft hands had blistered, healed, and blistered again. I'm holding it exactly as you showed me. No, He moved behind her, adjusting her grip. Like this. Let the weight do the work. Don't fight it. His calloused hands covered hers for a moment, repositioning them on the worn handle. Abigail's breath caught not from exertion, but from the unexpected warmth of human contact after weeks of careful distance. Elias seemed to realize it too, stepping back quickly. Try again, he said, voice rougher than usual. This time, the axe bit deep into the log, splitting it clean. Abigail couldn't hide her smile of triumph. Better, Elias admitted. Stack those by the house. Winter's coming fast. As she worked, Abigail caught him watching from where he repaired the corral fence. Not in any improper way. Elias Turner was nothing if not a gentleman, but with a puzzled sort of interest, like she was a book written in a language he was slowly learning to read. The sound of approaching horses made them both turn. 3 riders appeared on the horizon, and Elias's expression darkened. Get inside, he said quietly. Why? Who inside? Abigail, now. But it was too late. The riders were already at the gate, and the lead man's voice carried clearly across the yard. Turner, heard you got yourself some help around here. Abigail recognized him from her trips to town for supplies. Frank Watson, who owned the neighboring ranch and had a reputation for wanting what others had. His eyes found her immediately, taking in her simple dress and work-roughened appearance with obvious interest. Miss Watson tipped his hat, ignoring Elias entirely. Frank Watson, don't believe we've been properly introduced, because there's no need for introduction, Elias said, moving to stand between them. You need something, Watson. Just being neighborly. Wanted to meet the lady who's got the whole town talking. Watson's smile was all teeth. Miss Morrison, isn't it? Of the Kansas City Morrisons. Abigail felt ice in her veins. I don't know what you mean. Come now, no need for pretense. Your brother William was through here last week, looking for his runaway sister. Offered a substantial reward for information. Watson leaned forward in his saddle. Seems she stole some valuable jewelry when she left. Family wants her back too. Face justice. That's a lie, Abigail said before she could stop herself. Is it? Watson's eyes glittered. Well, I'm sure your family would be glad to hear you're safe, unless, of course, you've found a more comfortable arrangement here. The implication hung in the air like smoke. Elias's hand moved to the rifle propped against the fence post. You've said your piece, Watson. Time to move along. No need for unpleasantness, Turner. just thinking about what's best for everyone. A young lady like Miss Morrison, she belongs with her family, not out here playing house with a widower old enough to be her father. I'm 36, Elias said mildly, though his grip on the rifle tightened. And Miss Abigail is my employee, nothing more or less. Now get off my land before I help you off. Watson laughed, but his men were already backing their horses up. Think about it, Miss Morrison. Your family misses you. I'd hate to have to tell them I found you, but you refuse to come home. Might make them think you have something to hide. After they rode off, Abigail sank onto the porch steps, shaking. They're lying. I didn't steal anything. I didn't even take a coat when William threw me out. I know, Elias said simply. She looked up at him. You believe me. You're many things, Abigail, but you're no thief. He sat beside her, maintaining a careful distance. Question is, what do we do about Watson? He'll tell them where I am, maybe. Or maybe he'll try to use it as leverage first. Watson's been after my water rights for years. This gives him ammunition. Elias rubbed his jaw, thinking, how much does your family want you back? Abigail laughed bitterly. They don't want me back. They want to punish me for the embarrassment. William especially. I refuse to bend to his will, and he can't stand it. Then we make it not worth their while to come after you. How? Elias was quiet for a long moment. There's one sure way to keep your family from dragging you back, but you won't like it. She studied his profile, the weathered face, the gray threading through his dark hair, the steady strength that had become her anchor in these uncertain weeks. Tell me, marriage. He said it flat, factual. A married woman can't be forced back to her father's house. Law's clear on that. Abigail's heart stuttered. Marriage to whom? He turned to face her fully. I'm not proposing anything improper. Would be a business arrangement, pure and simple. Protection for you, help for me. We go to town, sign the papers, come back here and keep on as we have been. Separate rooms, same arrangement, just with legal protection. And when my family gives up, when it's safe, then you decide what you want to do. Stay, go, whatever suits you. His eyes were steady on hers. I know it's not ideal, but Watson won't wait long. And your brother sounds like the persistent type. Abigail thought of William's cruel smile as he cut her, of her father's cold dismissal, of Harold Fitzgerald's possessive hands. Then she thought of these past weeks, the quiet mornings over coffee, the satisfaction of hard work, the way Elias had never once made her feel lesser for her circumstances. Would you expect? She couldn't finish the sentence. I expect nothing but what you're willing to give, Elias said firmly. I had a good marriage once. I'm not looking to replace it with a false one. This would be protection, nothing more. But even as he said it, Abigail saw something flicker in his eyes, a loneliness that matched her own, a grief for lives that hadn't gone according to plan. When? She asked. Tomorrow, if you're willing, before Watson has time to wire your family. She stood, brushing dust from Margaret's dress that had become hers. Then I suppose we should tell the horses. They'll need to be ready early. Elias stood too, and for a moment they faced each other in the fading light. Abigail, are you sure? I'm sure of very little anymore, she admitted. But I trust you, Elias Turner. That's more than I can say for anyone else in this world. That night, as she lay in her narrow bed listening to coyotes howl across the prairie, Abigail wondered what she was about to do. Marriage to a stranger, even one as kind as Elias, seemed like jumping from one cage to another. But perhaps some cages had doors that opened from the inside. What she couldn't know was that Watson had already sent his telegram, and that even now, William Morrison was boarding a train in Kansas City, fury burning in his chest and his father's money in his pocket. When blood meets bond. The marriage certificate was barely a day old when the riders came. Abigail spotted the dust cloud from the kitchen window where she was kneading bread, a skill Elias had patiently taught her. Over the past weeks, her hands stilled in the dough as she counted. 6 riders, moving fast, too many for neighbors, too purposeful for drifters. Elias, she called, voice steady despite the fear clawing at her throat. He appeared in the doorway, took one look at her face and crossed to the window. His expression hardened. Get the rifle from above the fireplace, load it. I don't know how to. I'll teach you later. For now, Just load it like I showed you with the hunting rifle. Then stay inside." He grabbed his own Winchester from beside the door. "No matter what happens, stay inside." But Abigail had spent too many years bending two men's commands. She loaded the rifle with shaking hands, then followed Elias onto the porch. William Morrison hadn't changed, still the same cruel mouth, the same cold eyes that took pleasure in others' pain. He sat his horse like a king surveying peasants, flanked by hired guns whose hands rested too casually on their weapons. "Sister," William said, his voice dripping false warmth, "you've led us quite a chase." "I'm not your sister," Abigail replied. "You made that clear when you threw me out." "A misunderstanding." Father regrets his harsh words. "He wants you home." William's gaze shifted to Elias. "Turner, isn't it? I understand you've been harboring my sister. The family is grateful. Of course, we'll compensate you for your trouble." "Your sister is my wife," Elias said calmly. "Has been since yesterday. So you can turn around and head back to Kansas City." William's face darkened. "Impossible." "Show me the proof." Elias pulled the certificate from his shirt pocket, holding it up. "Judge Matthews in town can verify it, if you'd like. Though I doubt you'd enjoy explaining to him why you're trying to abduct a married woman." "You think a piece of paper changes anything?" William dismounted, his hand moving to the pistol at his hip. "My sister is a thief and a disgrace. She stole Mother's jewelry before she left thousands of dollars worth. I'm here to retrieve both her and what she stole." "Liar." The word burst from Abigail before she could stop it. "Mother's jewelry went to pay Father's gambling debts 2 years ago. You know it. He knows it. The whole of Kansas City society knows it." "Shut your mouth," William snarled, then turned back to Elias. "Name your price, Turner. How much to forget the sham marriage? Not for sale. Everything's for sale." $500. "No, 1,000. Elias shifted the rifle in, his hands not quite pointing it, but making his intentions clear. "The lady said no to your family's plans. She said no to your father, no to you, and no to whatever scheme you're running. Now she said yes to me, and that's the end of it. Get off my land." William studied them both, and a slow, ugly smile spread across his face. "I see." The widower rancher found himself a young bride to warm his bed. "Tell me, sister, does he know why Harold Fitzgerald really refused to marry you? Does he know about your condition?" Abigail felt the blood drain from her face. "William don't though, but he should know what damaged goods he's purchased." William's voice rose, carrying to the hired guns who watched with interest. "You see, Turner, my dear sister had a youthful indiscretion. A stable boy, wasn't it?" "Abigail," Father hushed it up. "Of course, sent her away to have the bastard, though it died at birth. Probably for the best, but word got out eventually. Harold couldn't marry a woman who'd already been ruined, could he?" The words hit like physical blows. Abigail gripped the porch rail, memories flooding back the terrified 15-year-old girl she'd been, the young man who'd promised to marry her and then disappeared when her father paid him off, the baby who'd lived just long enough for her to hold him once before fever took him. Her deepest shame laid bare before the man who'd shown her nothing but kindness. She couldn't look at Elias, couldn't bear to see disgust replace the respect in his eyes. "That's why you wanted her to marry Fitzgerald," Elias said slowly. "You'd already ruined her reputation, isolated her, made her feel worthless. Easy to control someone who believes they have no value." "She has no value," William spat. "Except what Father can salvage through a strategic marriage. You're wrong." The quiet certainty in Elias's voice made Abigail look up. His expression hadn't changed, still steady, still calm. "She has value to me," Elias continued. "Not for what she was or wasn't, but for who she is. The woman who works beside me, dawn to dusk without complaint, who learned to split wood and tend horses and make the best cornbread I've ever tasted, who faces down men like you with more courage than most soldiers I've known." He shifted slightly, putting himself more firmly between William and Abigail. "Your sister made a mistake as a child. You've made yours as a man. Difference is, she's paid for hers 10 times over, while you stand there proud of your cruelty." William's hand went to his gun. "You sanctimonious." The crack of Elias's rifle split the air. William's hat flew off his head, a neat hole punched through the crown. The hired guns reached for their weapons, but Elias had already levered. Another round. Next one's lower. He said conversationally, I spent 3 years sharpshooting for the Union Army. Can take the wings off a fly at 50 yards. Your choice, Morrison, ride out with your dignity, or get carried out without it. For a moment, violence hung in the air like morning mist. Then William bent to retrieve his hat, his face twisted with rage. This isn't over. Father has judges in his pocket from here to Chicago. We'll have this marriage annulled, and when you do, you'll find your sister still has a husband who will protect her. Elias's voice hardened. And if you come on my land again, if you send men after her, if you so much as whisper her name in connection with any lies about theft, I'll come to Kansas City myself. I've got friends too. Morrison, men who rode with me in the war, men who don't take kindly to bullies who hurt women. You understanding me, William? Mounted his horse, jerking the reins hard enough to make the animal dance. You've made a powerful enemy today, Turner. I've faced worse and lived. As the riders disappeared into the distance, Abigail's knees gave out. She sank onto the porch steps, the rifle clattering beside her. Why, she whispered. Why didn't you let him take me? Now you know what I am. Elias set his own rifle aside and sat next to her closer than he'd ever sat before. I know you were a frightened girl who trusted the wrong person. I know you've carried that pain alone for years. And I know your brother's a bastard who uses shame as a weapon. The baby, her voice broke. I named him James. He lived 3 days. 3 days, and I loved him more than I thought possible. They wouldn't even let me bury him. Said it was better to forget, to pretend it never happened. But it did happen. He was real, and he mattered. Elias's hand covered hers where it rested, on her knee, just like you matter. Tears she'd held back for 10 years finally came. Great sobbing gasps that shook her whole body. Elias pulled her against his shoulder, holding her while she cried for the girl she'd been, the child she'd lost, the family that had betrayed her. When the storm passed, she pulled back, wiping her face. This changes things. People will talk. If William spreads his poison, your reputation, already buried with my wife, Elias said simply. Abigail, I need to tell you something. These weeks, having you here, it's been like the house can breathe again. I told myself it was just the help, just having someone to talk to over supper. But that's not the whole truth. She looked at him, hardly daring to hope. I'm not saying I love you, he continued carefully. Not yet. But I could, given time, given chance, if you're willing. You still want me, even knowing, especially knowing. He cupped her face gently, thumb brushing away a lingering tear. You're not damaged goods, Abigail. You're a survivor. There's a difference. She leaned into his touch, feeling something crack open inside her chest, not breaking, but blooming. I could love you too, she whispered. I think I already do. A little. They sat there as the sun began to set, hands intertwined, watching the prairie turn gold. Tomorrow would bring new challenges William wouldn't give up easily, and winter was coming with all its hardships. But tonight, they had truth between them, and maybe, just maybe, that was enough to build on. What neither of them noticed was the lone rider on the distant hill, one of Watson's men, who'd watched the whole confrontation with interest. By morning, the entire town would know that William Morrison had come calling, and that Elias Turner had sent him packing. The legacy. They built the first blizzard of January arrived the same day as the baby. Abigail gripped Elias's hand as another contraction rolled through her, the midwife coaching her through it while wind howled against the windows like a living thing. Outside, snow fell so thick they couldn't see the barn 50 feet away. You're doing fine, honey, Mrs. Henderson soothed, the elderly midwife unfazed by either the storm or Abigail's cries. Baby's coming fast now. Elias pressed a cool cloth to Abigail's forehead, his face pale but determined. In the 9 months since their marriage had shifted from arrangement to true partnership, he'd faced down her brother twice more, survived a drought that killed half their crops, and helped her through the terror of realizing she was pregnant. Again, different this time, she gasped between contractions. You're here. I'm not alone. Never alone again, he promised, kissing her temple. Never. The final push came with a crack of thunder air in a snowstorm, but fitting for the Force of nature that was Abigail Turner. The baby's cry pierced the air, strong and indignant. A girl, Mrs. Henderson announced, cleaning the infant with practiced efficiency. Healthy as a horse and twice as loud. Abigail sobbed as the baby was placed on her chest, not from pain, but from joy so fierce it threatened to stop her heart. The little girl had Elias's dark hair but Abigail's green eyes, already alert and studying the world with serious intensity. "Margaret," Abigail whispered, "for your first wife, if that's all right." Elias's eyes filled. She would have been honored, little Maggie. He traced one finger down the baby's impossibly soft cheek. "Our daughter, our." The word held weight, not just biological truth, but chosen truth. Elias had been there through every moment of the pregnancy, his wonder matching hers, his protectiveness fierce against any who dared question the timeline of their marriage versus the baby's arrival. "Let them count months," he'd said when Watson made snide comments in town. "While they're doing arithmetic, we'll be raising our child." Now, as the storm raged outside, their world shrunk to this room: mother, father, child, and the stalwart midwife who'd brought half the county into the world. A pounding at the door interrupted the peace. Elias tensed, reaching for the rifle that was never far from hand these days. Through the bedroom doorway, they heard voices, urgent, angry. "That's William," Abigail breathed, clutching Maggie tighter. "How did he in this storm?" "Man's got the devil's own persistence," Elias muttered, but he was already moving. "Mrs. Henderson, stay with them." Elias, "No," but he was gone. Abigail heard the door open, heard William's voice sharp with triumph. "Telegram from Judge Pearson in Topeka. Your marriage is annulled on grounds of fraud. You took advantage of a distraught woman. I'm here to collect my sister over my dead body. That can be arranged." The sound of scuffling, furniture crashing. Abigail tried to rise, but Mrs. Henderson held her down. "You just birthed a baby girl. You'll bleed to death if you move. He needs help." A gunshot. Silence. Then footsteps approaching the bedroom. Abigail grabbed the derringer Elias had given her from the bedside drawer, aiming it at the door with shaking hands. If William had killed Elias, he'd have to kill her too before she'd let him near Maggie. The door opened. Elias stood there, blood on his shirt, Watson and two other townsmen behind him. "It's all right," Elias said quickly. William's gun went off in the struggle, caught him in the shoulder. "He'll live, unfortunately." Watson stepped forward, his usual smugness replaced by something like respect. "Saw Morrison and his men heading this way through the storm. Figured you might need backup. Brought some friends." He glanced at the baby in Abigail's arms, and his expression softened fractionally. "Congratulations on the little one." "The annulment," Abigail began, "won't hold up," Watson said. "See, Judge Matthews sent his own telegram to Topeka. Seems Judge Pearson's been taking bribes from the Morrison family for years. There's an investigation starting. Your marriage is valid. Mrs. Turner has been all along." Through the doorway, Abigail could see William slumped in a chair, Dr. Carter working on his shoulder while the sheriff waited with shackles. Her brother's face was gray with pain and defeat. "Furthermore," Watson continued, "the real story about your mother's jewelry came out. Seems William's been selling off family assets to cover his own gambling debts, blaming it on you. Your father's disowned him, sent word that he wants nothing more to do with either of you, but at least acknowledges you're innocent of theft. It should have mattered more, that vindication." But looking at Elias's relieved face, at Maggie perfect in her arms, at the neighbors who'd come through a blizzard to help, Abigail found she didn't care about her father's acknowledgement. She had a real family now. "Thank you," she told Watson. "All of you." Watson cleared his throat, uncomfortable with gratitude. "Well, Turner's a good neighbor. Helps when my fences are down. Shares water in drought years. Man like that deserves protecting." He paused at the door. "Named her Margaret, did you? Good name. Strong name." After they left, taking William to face charges of attempted kidnapping and assault, quiet returned to the house. Dr. Carter checked Abigail and the baby, pronounced them both healthy, and promised to return after the storm. Finally, it was just the three of them. Elias sat on the bed beside her, one arm around her shoulders. both of them staring at their daughter in wonder. "So it's over," Abigail said. "The William part." "Yes, the rest," Elias smiled. "Just beginning." Outside, the storm began to break. Through the window, they could see stars appearing between the clouds, and the first pale hint of dawn on the horizon. "Tell me about the future," Abigail said drowsily, exhausted but too happy to sleep. "Well," Elias said, his voice taking on the storytelling cadence she loved, "Maggie here will grow up strong, learn to ride before she can properly walk, much to your horror. She'll have your spirit and stubbornness, my steady hands and patience. We'll teach her to read with your mother's books you saved, and to work cattle like a Turner born. And U.S. we'll add to the herd come spring. Maybe build that second barn you've been sketching. Plant the apple orchard by the creek. Could start taking in horses for training, you've got a gift with them." His voice softened. "Maybe give Maggie a brother or sister in a year or 2 or 3, Abigail added, smiling at his delighted expression. "I want our children to have what I did in a house full of love and laughter. Parents who stand together against the world. They'll have it," Elias promised. "And when they're grown, when we're old and gray on this porch you want me to expand, we'll tell them the story. How a widowed rancher found a woman cast out by her family, and together they built something worth keeping." Abigail turned to kiss him, careful not to disturb Maggie. "I love you, Elias Turner, and I love you, Abigail Turner. Have since the day you split that first log and looked so proud of yourself. That was months ago. I'm a patient man, as the sun rose over the snow-covered prairie, painting the world in shades of gold and rose. The Turner family began their first day truly free of the past. There would be challenges ahead, there always were on the frontier, but they would face them together, building a legacy not of money or power, but of love, trust, and the courage to choose their own path. And 60 years later, when Margaret Turner Collins told her own grandchildren the story of their great-grandparents, she would always end it the same way. They chose each other. When the whole world stood against them, and in choosing each other, they chose to build something that lasted longer than pride, stronger than shame, and deeper than any storm that tried to tear them apart. That's the real inheritance they left us, not the ranch, not the cattle, but the knowledge that love isn't just something that happens to you. It's something you choose every day, no matter who tries to tell you otherwise. The Turner Ranch still stands today, a testament to people who refused to let the past define their future, and found in each other the home they'd both been searching for.